So this morning I want to talk about a particular topic. It is one of the most grave sins of Christianity, followed by replacing the name Jehovah, which is the creator of all things, replacing that name with God or Deus, and replacing the name Yehoshua with the name Jesus or Jesus. Now, the crime that I'm speaking of is another form of supersessionism, and it is called replacement theology. Okay? So, here on Wikipedia, supersessionism is also called replacement theology or fulfillment theology. Remember, folks, replacing the name Jehovah with God or with Deus is also replacement theology. It is a Christian theological doctrine which describes the theological conviction that a Christian church has superseded the nation of Israel, assuming Israel's role as the covenanted people. Now, every church, every one of them, that sprang up from the Catholic Church believes in supersessionism. And as far as I know, every church today believes in supersessionism. Supersessionist theology also holds that the universal Christian church has replaced ancient Israel as they say, as I pointed out to you, this supersessionism goes to even the name of the Creator. True Israel, and that Christians, including Gentiles, have replaced the biological bloodline of ancient Israelites as the holy people, or as he is saying, the people of God. This is blasphemy. And it is a blasphemy that all the churches embrace with their whole heart. And it is a doctrine. It is one of many doctrines that's going to get these congregations cast into the great tribulation that is coming. I want to give you some examples. For instance, the churches have twisted Revelation 12. Let me show you how they've done it. Verse 1, and there appeared a great wonder in the sky, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and upon her head of a crown of 12 stars. All right. A crown of 12 stars. What is that? Well, Europe, the EU, has usurped the crown of 12 stars that belongs to Israel, and this is one more identifier, one more proof that the European Christians identify themselves as the new Israel. Okay? Now, but what I want to do is I want to go through this whole chapter here. And there is proof hidden in here, or not hidden, depending upon who you are. If you want to hide your eyes from the truth, that is your fault, not Yohanan's fault. And she, being with child, travailed in birth and pain to be delivered. Now, the church claims that the woman, that they are the woman with the crown of 12 stars. They claim this. And there appeared another wonder in the sky, and behold, a great red dragon. Now, having 7 heads and 10 horns. Now, I have gone over this about the 7 heads being the what is it? Julio Claudius dynasty. Is that right? Is that how it's Claudian dynasty? And it begins with, I don't want to spend too much time in it. I've done, like several years ago, I did. It begins with Augustus, Emperor Augustus, or Caesar Augustus. And it ended with the last Caesar, the 8th, who was associated with the 7 was Vespasian. Vespasian was not related to the Julio-Claudian dynasty. Now, then you can go and look up the 10 kings of Europe, or the 10, I should say, the 10 heads of Daniel. All right. Now, there are a lot of interpretations of it, but they all agree that the 3 which were plucked up by the root was plucked up by the man at the Vatican himself. Those that were plucked up by the roots was, if I'm trying to remember all this, the Ostrogoths, the Vandals. Why is this thing messing with me? All right. I don't want to go into this too deep because I've got a lot of information to cover. As you can see right here, they're talking about the Julio-Claudia dynasty right here in this particular instance. And you have, which would be the 7 heads. And I was on it. Oh, here we go. Right here. I was on it the other day and somehow I goofed in my video. The 10 kingdoms which sprung up out of the Roman Empire, into which was broken and divided upon the dissolution of it about AD 476, which according to Mr. Me, thus were thus divided. The Britain kingdom, the Saxon kingdom, the Franks, the Burgundians, the Visigoths, Suevians, and Alans, and Vandals, Alamanes, Ostrogoths, and the Greeks. And as I pointed out to you, if this one is the one that's correct, the Greeks is where the Byzantines sprang up from and created the Greek Orthodox Church, which Russia is a part of. Now, there are several different theories here as to, okay, so the Vandals, the Visigoths, and I'm trying to remember who the other one was. It's been a long time. And another shall rise after you, not Titus Vespasian, as not nor the nation of Gog and Magog, but the Pope of Rome, being AntiMoshiach, not Antichrist, who came into power as universal bishop and as a horn, a temporal prince above the kingdoms which arose not after they were at an end, but after they were constituted and established. And it was proper that they should be first be, since they were to give their strength and power and kingdom to this beast, by which became the horn or temporal prince, in Revelation 17:13. Now, he doesn't talk about the kings that were subdued, but I know two of the three of them for certain. And one of these days I'll get into it. So, while modern day Christianity believes that this beast is coming yet, it has already been proven that they already occurred. Okay? They already exist. And the kingdom that is on the earth is the kingdom of Satan. And the kingdom of Satan created this false narrative in Cyril's Catechetical Lecture number 15. Created this false narrative that is the exact opposite of what Paul said in Romans 11. He said, but this aforesaid Antichrist is to come when the time of the Roman Empire shall have been fulfilled. Paul said in Romans 11 this, I would not, brethren, that, and he was speaking to the Romans, I would not, brethren, that you should be ignorant of this mystery, lest you should be wise in your own conceits. He is warning them, he is chastising them because they were already headed the wrong direction the Roman church was. Did they listen to him? No. Truth be told, the evidence is out there that they followed Satan, the devil, to the fullest. And I will provide you proof today. That partial blindness happened to Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles comes. What does that mean? You find out in this particular chapter and verse. Was it Matityahu, Bible Hub? One of these days I'm going to have these things memorized. I believe it's 22. Go to Strong's Concordance. Always go to Strong's Concordance, folks. Always. Okay. But before I do that, I'm going to go to the greatest commandment. All right. This is the Torah of Yehoshua. This is the first and great commandment. And that is not love the Lord your God, but no, love Jehovah Elohim. As I have showed you many, many times in the scripture, that's what his name is. To replace his name with a different name is to not love Jehovah Elohim. It is rejecting him and replacing him with a false idol. With all of your soul and with all of your mind, and this is the first and great commandment. And the second is like unto it, you shall love your neighbor as yourself. On these two commandments hang all the Torah and the prophets. Now what I want to do is go to the next. That's probably 24. I'm pretty sure it's 24. Okay. Paul said, when the fullness of the Gentiles comes, right? Isn't that what he said? Well, no, that's not what he said. See, he was speaking in Greek to the Romans, or he was speaking the Roman language, whatever it was, but he was not speaking English, so he did not say it exactly like this. But this particular This particular chapter here gives more detail into what he said. It is actually in Luke 21. Okay. So Paul said, I would not, brethren, that you, Romans, should be ignorant of this mystery, lest you, Romans, should be wise in your own conceits, that partial blindness happened to Israel until the fullness of the Gentiles comes. Okay? Here is what Yehoshua said. This is Israel's tribulation, as foretold, and it occurred 70 AD to 74 AD. And they fell by the edge of the sword, and they were led away captive. That's the reason why the vast majority of Jews are still not in Israel. Into all the Gentiles, Gentiles, and Jerusalem shall be trodden down by the Gentiles. Yes, they tread it down underfoot until the time of the Gentiles is Pieru or Pleeru, to make complete. So the time is ended until the time of the Gentiles is complete. Complete. Fulfill, to complete. Accomplished. Completed. Elapsed. Till the time of the Gentiles has elapsed. Now, Cyril says this: the aforesaid Antichrist is to come when the time of the Roman Empire shall have been fulfilled, and the end of the world is now drawing near. But all Christianity follows this lie and rejected the words of Paul. Why? Because of what he said in verse 26, and so all Israel shall be saved. This is the time when all Israel shall be saved. For it is written, there shall come out of Zion the deliverer, which will turn away unrighteousness from Jacob, because this is my covenant unto them, when I shall take away their sins. But see, what happened was Christianity got embroiled in the lie, the supersessionism lie, the great lie that Paul warned them about. So I'm going to read carefully to you all of Romans 11, then I'm going to continue, if I can remember, to continue with Revelation 12. Why is Paul having to tell this to the Roman church? Because they don't believe it. Otherwise, he wouldn't have to tell it to them. I say then, has Jehovah, not God, cast away his people? Jehovah forbid. Because I also am an Israelite of the seed of Abraham, of the tribe of Benjamin. Jehovah has not, N-O-T, not cast away his people. Yet your supersessionism doctrine claims that he has, and replaced them with you. He has not cast away his people whom he foreknew. Don't you know what the scripture says of Eliah? How he made intercession to Jehovah against Israel, saying, Elohim, they have killed your prophets and digged down your altars, and I am left alone, and they seek my life. But what did he say to them? I have reserved to myself 7,000 men who have not bowed the knee to the image of Baal. And who do the Christians bow the knee to? Baal. I've showed you that in other videos. The graven image that Paul warned about in, I believe it's Romans 1. Even so, at this present time, there is a remnant according to the election of grace. Now, he says, Israel has not obtained which they seek, yet, but the election of grace has received it. The election of grace. The election of grace has received it. And the election of grace allowed Gentiles to come in, because when Yehoshua was raised from the dead and sat on the right-hand side of the throne of Jehovah, it is written in the prophets, in the Tanakh, that it is not good enough for him to be the one, just the one who brings all Israel back home and watches over them all home to the Holy Land. But you shall be my salvation, or you shall be a light to the Gentiles, so that you will be my salvation unto the ends of the earth. Well, Israel had a problem with that, and because the Jews had a problem with that, they were temporarily, the ones who didn't believe, were temporarily set aside. Temporarily, as Paul says here. Jehovah, Israel has not obtained what it seeks for, but the election of grace has obtained it, and the rest were blinded. Our hearts were hard, they hardened their hearts. According as is written, Jehovah has given them the spirit of slumber, eyes that they should not see, and ears that they should not hear. Today, now, David said, let their table be made, as this was in Psalm 69:22, but it also applies to the Gentiles, because Paul in Thessalonians applied it to the Gentiles. David said, let their table be made a snare and a trap and a stumbling block and a recompense unto them. Well, this rejection of Israel as the elect is going to have the same effect on the Gentiles that when the Jews rejected the Gentiles in the election of grace, the same effect. Rejection. I say then, had they stumbled that they should fall? Jehovah forbid. Or he says no, but rather by their temporary false step trespass, their lapse, false step, trespass, and sin, because of that. Salvation is come to the Gentiles, for to provoke them to jealousy. Now, if the temporary misstep of them are the riches of the Gentile world, and a diminishing of the riches of them, the riches of the Gentiles, how much more their fullness? And this is where you Gentiles committed the same sin as the Jews did, and that sin caused the destruction of Jerusalem. You committed the same sin as Israel did, and it caused the destruction of Jerusalem. So because you committed the same sin that Israel did, you are going to receive the fall of your cities, the destruction of your cities by fire. I speak to you, Gentiles, because I am the apostle to the Gentiles. I magnify my office, if by any means I may provoke to emulation them which are of my flesh, and save some of them that are here today. For the casting away, if the casting away of them be the reconciling of the world, if the rejection of them be the reconciling of the Gentile world, then what shall be the receiving them of them be but life from the dead? Their receiving is going to be greater than the reception for the Gentiles, is what he is saying. Because if the first fruit, the Jew, Yehoshua, whose name never changed to Jesus, is holy, then the lump, all 12 tribes of Israel, also holy. And if the root of the tree is holy, then so are all 12 branches. If some of the branches were broken off, and you, being a wild olive, were grafted in among them, among, in, at, by, with them, in, on, at, by, with them, you did not replace them. And if you try to replace them, you will be rejected. But this is what all of Christianity practices today. They practice supersessionism. They believe that the church replaces Israel. And that's the reason why they believe that that church is going to go to heaven while the rest of the world suffers a great tribulation. What they don't realize is they perverted the scripture that's written about in Isaiah 60, verse 8, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, where it talks about what are these that are flying in the clouds like doves to their windows. Who are these that are flying like clouds, like doves to the windows? Go look at it. The coastlands shall wait, and the ships of Tarshish first. The ships of Tarshish are flying. That's what Isaiah saw. And what were they carrying? They were carrying the people of Israel back home. So you rejected. That's the reason why you don't believe the words of the prophets. You see, and that is also the reason why a particular fellow told me not to read the book. In fact, I should go there very soon, but I will try to finish this. He says, because of this, he says, and if some of the branches were broken off, and you, being a wild olive, were grafted in among them, a orchard man would know exactly what that means. The graft does not replace the tree. Mm-mm. You better study your orchardry. And with them, partaking jointly, not replacing them, of the fatness of the olive tree. Do not boast against the branches. You did more than boast against the branches, O Roman Church, and all the churches that proceeded from it. No, you set out to murder them. You put this yellow star on them to hold him up for mockery and murder. That's what you did. Generation after generation after generation. And no, the United States is not exempt from this, because the eugenics of the United States, the eugenics doctrine of the United States, is where the Germans learned their craft, where the Nazis learned their craft. Once again, Google the horrifying American roots of Nazi Germany, and you will find an article written by Edwin Black. I urge you to read it, every one of you. And that is the reason why the fact that these eugenists were allowed to continue their studies is the reason why there are killer viruses running around the world, and they're planning another one. It's called Disease X. You can look it up. But if you boast, you do not bear the root, but the root bears you. You will say then that the branches were broken off that I might be grafted in. Well, because of unbelief they were broken off. Now, if the Jews were broken off because, temporarily, by the way, temporarily broken off because of unbelief, what's going to happen to you, Christian? Oh, you say you don't believe, you say you do believe? I will show you where you don't believe. And you stand by faith. Be not high-minded, but fear. Oh, the high-mindedness runs rampant throughout all the churches. For if Jehovah did not spare the natural branches, he will not spare you either. Behold the righteousness and the severity of Jehovah on them which fell severity, but toward you toward you goodness, if you continue in his goodness. Otherwise, you shall also be cut off. But in your song, Onward Christian Soldier, you say the gates of hell can never prevail against that church. That's what you said. The congregation of that Yehoshua was speaking of was the Hebrew congregation. It was. Remember, before he died, he told the disciples, do not go to any other but the lost sheep of the house of Israel. And he says, against that congregation, the gates of hell shall not prevail against it, even though the gates of hell open up multiple times upon the Jews. And failed to wipe them out. But that's a topic for another day. And they will no longer abide in unbelief, but will be grafted in, for Jehovah is able to graft them in again. For if you were cut out of the olive tree, which is wild by nature, and you were grafted in contrary to nature into a good olive tree, how much more advantage shall these which are of the natural branches be grafted back into their own tree? For I would not, brethren, Romans, that you should be ignorant of this mystery, lest you should be wise in your own conceits, that partial blindness happened to Israel until the time of the Gentiles comes to an end. As I pointed out in here, Luke 21, until the times of the Gentiles are fulfilled. So it's about time. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. You Christians absolutely and totally rejected the words of Paul here. And I want to give you a little bit of proof. Let's go to YouTube. And I want to go to the notifications. Where is it? Somebody removed. Oh, here we go. So this guy, I don't know if I'll be able to get through his whole thing, because he says a man cannot live vicariously through a book. Does this mean that anything to those who live by the book? He's talking about the scripture, okay? And he says, "Don't concentrate on the finger, or you will lose heavenly glory." And here's my response: put the crack pipe down, because he sounded nuts. And so he said, put the book away and live through the Holy Spirit. Nobody should live vicariously through a book when Jesus resurrected and we have the Holy... What? All right. So I wrote here, what's the matter? You don't like what's written in Romans 11, verse 25 through 27? Am I right? Now, if you don't like Romans 11, verse 25 to 27, you surely hate the whole chapter. Am I right? Oh, that's right. You hate the whole book because the spirit you serve is serpentine in nature. Is it any wonder that a graven image of the great red dragon, aka Satan, is on the Vatican wall? And I post a link. And look what we have here. The great red dragon on the Vatican wall. Above the doorway entrance at the Gallery of Maps is a monumental display, and they say, well, they call him Lucifer, so whatever, right? But this is Satan the devil. And this is who the churches worship, and all who follow the doctrines of the mother church all worship the devil. Gotcha. And that is why their Catechetical Lecture goes absolutely contrary to the words of Paul. Now, so the Christian church also believes that at the very end of days that Satan is going to be cast down, but that's not true. That is false. He is already cast down. He was cast down when Yehoshua was raised from the dead. Okay? Right here. Yohanan, not John, Yohanan 14 and verse 30. At this point and forward, at this point and forward, I will not talk much with you because the prince of this world comes. So why is he not going to talk with him that much anymore? Because hereafter, from this time forward, the prince of this world comes and has nothing in me. So, when we go to Revelation 12, what we find out here is that when the man-child that was born from Israel was caught up unto not God, but Jehovah to his throne, and the woman fled into the wilderness, where she had a place prepared of Jehovah, that they should feed her there 1,260 days. That's not the church. See, this is a summary from start to finish. This is a description of it. As soon as the child was caught up to the sky, a war occurred in the sky. Michael and his messengers fought against the dragon. Fought against the dragon. The church dragon. And the dragon prevailed not, neither was there any place found for him in heaven. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called Satan the devil, which deceived the whole world. And he does deceive the whole world. And he was cast out onto the earth, and his messengers were cast out with him. All right? So what happens here in verse 13? And as soon as the dragon saw that he was cast into the earth, he persecuted the woman, which brought forth the man-child. This was the destruction of Jerusalem, 70 AD through 74. And many years later, Remember, when the time of the Gentiles is fulfilled, the sun, there shall be signs in the sun and the moon and in the stars and upon the earth, distress upon the Gentiles. This is going to be now the tribulation upon the Gentiles. With perplexity and the waves and the seas roaring, men's hearts failing for fear, for looking after those things which are coming on the earth, for the powers of the sky will be shaken, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in a cloud with power and great glory, and they will call him the Antichrist, to come when the times of the Roman Empire has been fulfilled. This is what you Christians, you worshipers of Satan, this is what you do and what you will do. All right? And when these things begin to come to pass, look up and lift up your heads, for your redemption draws nigh. Who was he speaking to? He was speaking to disciples, the leaders of the 12 tribes of Israel. Now, we go back to Matthew 24. It says, immediately after that tribulation, Israel's tribulation, shall the sun be darkened and the moon shall not give her light. You see, Israel's tribulation is about to end. The Gaza and Lebanon war has begun, as spoken of in Joel 3. He gives timelines and reasons. Now, on the flip side, after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from the sky, and the powers of heaven shall be shaken, and there shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in the sky. And then shall all the tribes of the earth be cut off. Cut off. Paul warned right here. He said that right here. It says, if you do not continue in this goodness, you shall also be cut down. You will be cut down. So who here is going to be cut down in Matthew 24? We go to Romans. Where's my Romans at? Did I mess something up here? Romans 11. Who's going to be cut off and who's not going to be cut off? Well, right here it says, for I would not, brethren, that you should be ignorant of this mystery, lest you be wise in your own conceits, that partial blindness happened to Israel until, as we just read, the time of the Gentiles comes. And so all Israel shall be saved. There shall come out of Zion the deliverer, who will turn away unrighteousness from Jacob, because this is my covenant unto them, when I shall take away their sins. Concerning the gospel, they are the enemy for your sakes, but concerning the election, they are the beloved elect for the patriarch's sake. So now that we know that the Gentiles are going to be cut off here, who are the elect? We just read Israel. All right, and he will send his, not angels, but messengers. What messengers? Messengers. Messengers with a great sound of a trumpet, and they shall gather together his elect from the four winds, from the one end of the sky unto the other. So when the time of the Gentiles comes to the end, all Israel shall be saved. That means the elect are Israel. And who are these messengers written about here? Okay. Now watch this. Now when the dragon saw that he was cast in the earth, he persecuted the woman, and he did so for nearly 2,000 years now. Through the seven heads, the Julio-Claudian dynasty, and through the 10 kingdoms of Europe, aka the church, led by the little horn. Then she was given 2 wings of a great eagle, literally. It says so in Isaiah 60, verse 8 and 9. Who are these that are flying like doves to their windows? The coastland shall wait. The ships of Tarshish are first to bring your children from afar. And this is why the Vatican tells you not to read the book. Because they call Satan's spirit the Holy Spirit. That she might fly into the wilderness back to her place, back to the Holy Land, where she is nourished for not 3.5 years, where she is nourished there for a season and a half. A season. That might only be 1.5 years. From the face of the serpent. What it could be going on, and I'm not sure, 1.5 years to gather all Israel in. And then what happens? So it looks like all Israel might only have 1.5 years or less to get in there. And then the serpent casts out his mouth as a flood after the woman. That is the great army. That is the Ezekiel 38-39 war. That is the second half of Yoel 3. That he might cause her to be carried away of the flood. And the earth helped the woman, and the earth made a great earthquake, as you see in Ezekiel 38-39. Opened up her mouth and swallowed up the flood, which the dragon cast out of his mouth. Once the 2 witnesses' job is finished, the dragon was wroth with the woman. He could no longer attack her. So what does he do? He goes and makes war with the 2 witnesses, the remnant of her seed, those which keep the commandments of Jehovah and have the testimony of Yehoshua, Moshiach. How do I know this? How do I know it's the 2 witnesses? Just go to the previous chapter and you will find them. And then go to Isaiah 66 and you will see that fugitives will show Jehovah's glory to the Gentiles, to Tarshish first. In the last half, it says so. And there were given to me a rod. This is while the temple was still standing. And the messenger said, Rise and measure the temple of Jehovah, and the altar, and them that worship therein. But the court which is outside the temple, throw it out, cast it out. Throw them out! Just like the Jews were thrown out of Jerusalem. And measure it not, for it is given to the Gentiles, and the holy city shall they tread underfoot for 42 months. And I will give power to my 2 witnesses, and they shall prophesy 1,260 days. This is the reason why I wear this potato sack, is a nod to the 2 witnesses for that which they are going to do after this nuclear war between the Christian nations. Clothed in sackcloth. These are the 2 olive trees and the 2 lampstands standing before the Elohim of the earth. And if any man will hurt them, fire proceeds out of their mouth, just like when the 50 and their captain came to Eliah the prophet to demand that he go with them to the king, and he said, "If I be a man of Elohim, let fire come down from the sky and devour you and your 50." And it happened. Fire proceeds out of their mouth, devouring their enemies, and if any man will hurt them, he must be in this manner be killed. These have the power to shut the sky. So now, once the smoke clears from the nuclear wasteland that the Gentile Christians have done to each other, then the two witnesses are going to shut the sky, that it rain not in the days of their prophecy. How many days in their prophecy? 1,260 days. Nothing will be left on the earth that is not burnt after they are finished. And what will they do? And it says the two witnesses were killed. After 3.5 years, what were they doing? Well, if you go here, it was all about the dragon persecuting the woman, but a place of escape. The two witnesses, but doesn't say the two witnesses right here, does it? But look what it says. It says, and went to make war with the remnant of her seed. Those are two witnesses. Because they killed them, which keep the commandments of Jehovah and have the testimony of Yehoshua. They killed them. Why? What were they doing? Let us go then to Isaiah. And to the fellow who told me to stop reading the book, I thank him for saying that, because now he's going to inspire me to read the book even more. Isaiah 66. Jehovah's final judgment against the wicked. Verse 18, for I know their works and their thoughts, and it shall come that I will gather all the Gentiles, and tongues, and they shall come and see my glory. How are they going to come and see his glory? Yoel 3. And I will set a sign, and I will send those that escape of them. I will send fugitives. See, it says escape one, fugitive. Eliah the prophet was also a fugitive, was he not? There's going to be two of them. Okay? And what are they going to do? To the Gentiles. They're going to send them to the Gentiles. And who the first? To Tarshish. Okay? Now what we're going to do is, since I'm done with Yohanan 12, we're going to go to Isaiah 60. In verse 8. And who are these that fly, not as a cloud, but in the cloud? That fly, cloud, in the cloud. Like doves to the windows. The coastlands shall wait, you can see, shall wait, and the ships, all right, of Tarshish first. So they're flying in the clouds on the ships of Tarshish. Now we go back to Isaiah 66. And where do these two witnesses go to first? They go to Tarshish. Why? Because the furthest west points of the earth is where the majority of the Jews are today, and so consequently the rest of Israel are with them as well. Now, do not get the big idea of this British Israelism religion that's out there that claims the United States and Britain are Israel. They are not. The majority are still Gentiles. But there is a sizable portion of the lost 10 tribes in the United States because the vast majority of the Jews are in the United States of America. There's about, I think, about 1 million more Jews in the United States of America than there are in Israel. And to Pul and Lud, those who draw the bow, to Tubal and Greece, and to the coastlands afar off. That would be the coastlands of the Mediterranean Sea. It does not say they have not nor heard my fame. It says to hear my fame, to see my glory, and they shall declare my glory to the Gentiles. How are they going to do it? How are those two witnesses going to do it? By plagues of no rain and every kind of plague to force. To do what? And they shall bring all your brethren for an offering to Jehovah out of all the Gentiles. So the Gentiles are going to be forced to bring all Israel back home. Apparently, don't quote me, it is a guess, it is a hypothesis, it'll be a period of 1.5 years. And then, after the period of 1.5 years is over, we see that the serpent we go back to Revelation 12. I thought I was done with this, but I'm not. The serpent attacks the woman. It casts out of his mouth like a flood. So the ships of Tarshish is going to lead the effort to bring all Israel back home. That means the ships of the furthest points west, and that is probably the United States of America. For approximately, probably 1.5 years. And then once that is done, then the Eurocentric Gentiles are going to invade. And bring probably the 7 last plagues upon them. But anyway, so to those of you who tell me stop reading the book, all you have done is inspired me to read the book more. But what I'm trying to tell you is, take heed if you think you stand, lest you fall.